Locked, written by Hanson. Open on, exterior, large country house, evening. Winter rain lashes down, a car pulls up. Todd, 30s, exits the car and runs towards the entrance. A piece of paper is taped to the door. It reads, head to the study, through the dining room, third door on the left. Interior study, evening. A large study crammed with books. A circular table sits in the middle. Stuffed heads of animals hang on the walls. Todd enters. Sitting at the table is Helen.
So you got one as well.
Helen stands and they coldly embrace.
If you mean a letter promising me $2,000 if I showed up here tonight, then yeah, I did.
So what have you been up to since uni?
Me, I started a worthless business.
So you're exactly where I thought you'd be.
Pretty much. I'm guessing you're an unemployed housewife?
No, I run a children's charity.
So another wasted education then.
Really haven't missed you, Todd.
Is that slimy Todd Fairfax and sexy Helen Hingis?
Ricky approaches, a good-looking, muscular man.
Handsome Ricky.
Helen pushes past Todd and hugs Ricky. Todd shakes Ricky's hand.
I suppose you know who our rich benefactor is?
Oh no, but I've got a pretty good idea.
He points to a photo on the wall of them in their 20s. There is another woman in the photo. This is Candice.
Candice? There's a name from the past.
God, has it really been 10 years?
Ricky touches the photo and it falls to the floor.
Oh, nice going, idiot.
I barely touched the stupid thing.
Ricky picks a nail up off the floor.
You see, nail was already hanging out of the wall.
He goes to pick up the photo.
Leave it.
Mrs. Ranson, 60s, a tall, elegant woman with silver hair, stands by the door.
Mrs. Ranson, I'm Helen. We met at Candice's funeral.
Please, take a seat.
They sit down at the table. Mrs. Ranson discreetly locks the door and walks to the front of the room.
I'm sure you're wondering why you've been invited here tonight.
Yeah, about that. I actually need my payment in cash.
Jesus, Todd.
You're here because one of you was responsible for my daughter's death. One of you pretended to love Candice so to extract as much money from her as possible. Your actions caused my only child to take her own life.
Candice's death was an accident.
Official verdict was that she fell out of a bedroom window.
She killed herself because one of you told her to do so.
There's no $2,000, is there?
Do you have to be so callous, Todd?
Like you're any better.
2 years after her death, I sold the house you all lived in. And do you know what the renovators found hidden in Candice's old room?
Mrs. Ranson brings out an iPhone.
A secret phone.
She places the phone on the table. Todd stiffens slightly.
Oh, I couldn't just hand it over to the police without knowing what was on it. There are people that could hack it, but given my wealth, it could expose me to blackmail. So for 8 long years, this phone has remained locked, taunting me.
You think one of us can unlock it?
Mrs. Ranson runs her finger across the screen and the phone unlocks.
Well, now all you need is a death certificate to unlock a phone.
How do you know that Candice had a relationship with one of us?
There was thousands of students at our uni.
Well, she sent this to one of you. Phil's naughty starting a relationship with someone I live with. And you three were the only people that lived with her.
Try phoning the number she texted.
Disconnected.
Bum.
Well, you can rule me out, Mrs. Ranson. Women don't interest me.
Bullshit. You and Candice were always fooling around.
Oh, screw you, Todd. What was your motto when it came to the opposite sex?
Don't know what you're talking about.
You called it Todd's 3 Fs. Find them, fuck them, finish them.
There were 4 Fs, remember? Find them, fuck them, fleece them, finish them.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
That's a lie.
We all know you took Candice for everything you could get.
Todd stands abruptly, knocking over his chair.
I'm out of here. All right, you can shove that phone and your accusations.
Sit down. I said, sit down.
Mrs. Ranson pulls out a pistol and aims it at Todd's back.
I take another step and you're dead.
Todd, look.
Todd turns and sees the pistol.
Is that for real or just for show?
Mrs. Ranson fires the gun at a tiger's head mounted on the wall. The bullet shoots out one of its glass eyes. Smoke fills the room.
Okay, take it easy, lady.
Todd sits back down. Mrs. Ranson jabs the pistol at them.
And one of you will not be leaving this room alive, so start talking.
Candice wanted to be popular, so she paid me to be seen with her. That's all.
Such a liar, Todd.
I remember her buying you tennis rackets, football boots, whatever Ricky wanted, handsome Ricky got.
She offered. Didn't even have to ask.
Mrs. Ranson slides the phone to Helen.
I'll read this message from Candice.
Why are you doing this to me? I've given you everything you asked for and you've given me nothing in return. Do I have to kill myself to get your attention?
Mrs. Ranson moves the phone over to Todd.
Read the reply.
Why me?
Because I said so.
You want to kill yourself, then go ahead. The world doesn't need a freak like you, and neither do I.
Mrs. Ranson snatches the phone back and passes it to Ricky.
Now you read the next reply.
I'll do it, just you see.
Now you, Todd.
See you at your funeral then, darling. Darling, look, does that sound like something I would write?
Yes.
You had to believe me, Mrs. Ranson. I didn't send those messages.
I don't have to believe anything.
Mrs. Ranson removes a cloth in the middle of the table, revealing a circular box with 3 holes on the sides. There is a small hole on the top with a cork stopper.
Each of you are to put your hand inside the box.
What's inside?
Nothing yet.
They do as they are told. Mrs. Ranson brings out a glass jar containing a red-coloured bee.
I say hello to the African crimson bee.
Mrs. Ranson removes the lid and it crawls onto her finger.
Beautiful, isn't she?
She lifts her hand and allows the bee to crawl onto her face.
Gentle and loving like me.
Mrs. Ranson tips the bee back into the bottle.
But like me, she gets angry and she stings.
She removes the stopper from the box and tips in the bee.
Do you know what gets the African crimson bee angry? Bullshit. Specifically the hormone norepinephrine, which the body releases when you lie.
Mrs. Ranson replaces the cork stopper, trapping the bee inside. A faint buzzing can be heard.
I have a fear of bees, Mrs. Ranson.
The sting won't kill you, dear. Only a bullet will. Todd, did you tell Candice to kill herself?
No.
Buzzing grows louder.
Helen, did you tell my daughter to take her own life?
Oh God, it's crawling over my hand.
Answer the question.
No, I loved
The
Candice.
buzzing grows even louder.
Ricky, did you tell my daughter to kill herself?
No.
Suddenly, Helen jumps and screams. She pulls out a hand. There is a deep scratch on her middle finger and blood trickles onto the table.
It's not true. I didn't do anything.
Todd and Ricky both remove their hands from the box. Mrs. Ranson points her pistol at Helen.
But you two go now.
This isn't right. There's been a mistake.
Leave.
Ricky, please.
Sorry, Helen, you're on your own.
Todd and Ricky run out of the house. Ricky stops and grabs his hand.
I'm not stopping, Ricky.
Todd reaches his car and speeds off. Ricky looks at his hand. It is swollen from the bee sting lodged between his fingers. Ricky opens his palm to reveal the nail, still covered with Helen's blood. The end.